I know, let's buy property in Rapid City or the Black Hills and run it as an Airbnb. That's an amazing idea. Or is it? Hey everybody, I'm Tristan Emond with Mindful Living Realty, a realtor right here in Rapid City, South Dakota, the gateway to the Black Hills. In the past few years, Airbnb, VRBOs, short-term rentals have become a huge item. So let's talk about the real pros, the cons, all the gotchas that might occur when you're buying a property in Rapid City and the Black Hills to use as an Airbnb. Obviously, a short-term rental sounds amazing. You just throw it online, people come, you get $500 a night, right? But there are a lot of other things that go into it that we need to talk about, including regulations, income limits, what you can expect for your property in our area. First of all, let's talk about the pros. We are in a tourist destination. People are always coming here, and people like the short-term rental options instead of just a hotel or a cabin or a tent. So there's always lots of opportunity for short-term rentals in our area because of the flux of people always coming in and out. And we're not just talking about summertime either, we're also talking about wintertime like snow skiing in Terry Peak, and even winter carnivals and events. Not to mention outdoor stuff like hunting and fishing. Usually this means pretty steady nightly rental demand, especially in the summertime and during long weekends. And usually you can make more money on a short-term rental than you can in a standard long-term rental on a property if it's staged, reviewed, and marketed properly. We've also got a very diversified market here in Rapid City and the Black Hills. You could be in Rapid City itself, where you have people who are not only using Rapid City as their home base, but also the conferences and concerts and all the other things going on in Rapid City itself. Then you've also got like that summer cabin vibe, Hill City and Custer, where people come to get away and enjoy the Black Hills. Plus you've got the winter wonderland in the Black Hills, where even places like near Terry Peak, there's a whole neighborhood up there where the winter is actually for the busiest time for those nightly rentals. If you love variety, there's a spot for it. You got different types of properties for different types of the year, depending on what you're near and what you want. Plus, there is the opportunity to make quite a bit of money per night because of the Airbnb short-term market here in the Black Hills. It's not uncommon for some of the bigger places to be $200, $300, $400 a night, and then some, depending on what all's involved. Last time I was looking for an off-season Airbnb for a weekend getaway with my wife and I in the Black Hills for $100 or so. There wasn't a whole lot available. Most of them are at least $200 a night, if not more, depending on location and amenities, even during the wintertime. However, getting a nightly renter up and running is not as easy as it might sound. We got regulations, rules, and all the other things put on by municipalities and other people. So let's talk about these rules starting at the higher level, and that would be the county level. Every county is a little bit different on their rules and regulations in reference to nightly rentals. Now, if you're in Pennington County, that's Rapid City down to Hill City, kind of the middle stripes right through the hills, they're going to be the most restrictive. There's about a 2-page document that you've got to go through, checklist all the items that they need to be approved by Pennington County to run and operate a short-term rental within the county limits. One of these rules is having over an acre of land. So if you're trying to buy a property in the county limits that's outside of a city, only on half an acre, you probably would not be allowed to use that as a nightly rental. Now, there's one exception in Pennington County to those rules, and that is if it's already an existing established nightly rental, then they'll just grandfather that in and you can just keep operating it as such. These rules and regulations are for those properties that are not currently nightly rentals that we want to shift into the nightly rental category. I did have a client that did buy property in Pennington County for use specifically for a nightly rental that they would use in the off season for themselves. The property managers that they hired actually helped them go through the entire process, working with the counter to get it up and running. So there are people out there to help you do this, but just know that there are rules and there's a few of them. Outside of Pennington County, things get a lot easier. As you go north to like the Spearfish area in Lawrence County, or as you go south into Custer and Fall River County, which is Custer and Hot Springs, it's a lot easier. There are few regulations. As long as you tell them what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier for you to run that nightly rental. So a lot of times I'm counseling my people, stay out of Pennington County, go north or south, and find a nightly rental in those counties to make it easier on you and yourself. Now let's bring it in a little bit further and go to city regulations. Prior to this year, usually the cities didn't have anything more to say about things than the county did. However, Rapid City used to kind of be a free-for-all, and now they've attached some rules to it just the beginning of this year. The nightly rental rules within the Rapid City limits aren't anything crazy. They're just here to ensure safety and making sure everybody's getting along. They include things like occupancy limits, bringing all 15 of your friends over into the one property may not be allowed within Rapid City area. There's parking restrictions, so you want to make sure that you don't take up all the neighborhood space for parking. You've got to register your property with the city, and you got to make sure you do those health inspections, and regulations to make sure everything is clean in the way it's supposed to be. One of the biggest things about these new rules in Rapid City is you need to have a local person to be able to answer the phone if there's an issue. So make sure that the property management company that you're planning on hiring to help you with this, assuming that you're going to be staying out of town, is going to be there and be responsible for answering these phone calls if there are any problems as required by the city. None of this is insanely crazy, but there are things to be aware of before you start just throwing things around in the city of Rapid City. I haven't heard too many stories of other cities having excessive rules and regulations on nightly rentals in their city. However, I think Spearfish will have a few more rules than the smaller cities like Custer and Leland-Deadwood. And finally, we go one step narrower and we look at the individual covenants of properties. What you'll notice a lot of properties within the Black Hills is you're really part of a subdivision. You're just not buying a random 10 acres. That's usually a subdivision that was divided into 10-acre lots. So within that subdivision, when it was created, there are usually covenants attached to the property that say what you can and cannot do. Now here's where it goes interesting. A lot of these covenants were established back in the 70s and 80s when nightly rentals weren't even a thing. So it doesn't necessarily specifically state in those covenants if you can actually have a nightly rental or not. Most usually state, hey, you can't have any business activity in the property, which I think back in that time they're talking about, not having a hairdressing salon in your house that has 5, 6, 8 people, a lot of more traffic in the neighborhood. But others in the neighborhood very well could look at that business activity and see your property here that's strictly an Airbnb or nightly rental and say that's business use, it can't be used here. Now there have been some court cases that sided with the homeowners saying, hey, it's personal use, they can do what they want with the property. But more and more neighbors and community are actually getting together and changing the covenants to say specifically no short-term rentals. I've heard of a couple communities just outside of Custer that did this in the past couple of years to make sure that it's only homeowners living in properties and you don't have that transient population of guests staying at your Airbnb. Some of the more recent subdivisions have included language saying yes you can or no you can't, and included a few rules with that. For instance, they might talk about the number of cars you can have on the property, occupancy limits, etc., to keep the number of people coming into the subdivision lower, but yet still allowing for that freedom and flexibility because, hey, that's your house, you can do what you want with it. The other thing to consider is with opportunity comes competition. We have a whole lot of short-term rentals in Rapid City and the Black Hills area. Just because you throw it up on Airbnb and hang a shingle on your door doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get people flocking to your property. My wife and I do a lot of nightly rentals when we're traveling. Here are a few things that you really need to have to make sure that people don't just flip by you. The first one is great pictures. Don't put grainy ones up there. Maybe even hire a professional to make sure that these pictures are wide angle, they show all the space, and really I don't need to see a close-up of your hanging on the wall. I really don't care. It's more about, is the space going to work for me? Show me a picture outside, show me a picture of the decks, let me see everything what I'm going to be experiencing. The other thing you need to have is some great reviews. The more good reviews you have, the more comfortable a potential renter is going to be willing to come and stay at your property. And finally, you've got to have that competitive pricing strategy. After all, you're competing with some established people that have been there for a long time and have a really great base. You've got a lot of campgrounds where they're even putting their little cabins on short-term rental websites. And you have to be thinking about where your property is in relation to the people you're trying to attract. For example, if you've got a property near Custer, that's great for Custer State Park, all the things that are going on in the summer there. Plus in September, you've got the hot air balloon stuff going on in Hot Springs not far away, and you've got the Buffalo Roundup. All very important things. And in January, you've got the Beetleburg, except for like this year we got canceled because we ain't got no snow. But outside of these events, it might be a little bit slower than during the other times. Conversely, if you're near Leland-Deadwood, you might have more business during the winter time when you have snowmobiling and snowshoeing and Terry Peak and all the different winter activities happening where all the snow is in the Black Hills. But they'd also be great summer rentals as well because you've got Deadwood and all the things that happen here in the summertime. So if you're thinking, yeah, it's Black Hills, that'll get $400 a night, well, you kind of got to back that up with amenities and booking data. You've got all the covenants and all the rules and everything else figured out. So now let's talk about the business side of things. Let's talk about some general ballpark numbers here, but not get too much into the weeds. So consider an average nightly rent of $200 to $400 a night, considering the season, area, location, amenities. Well, let's not forget about all the expenses involved. Aside from your mortgage, you also have those property taxes. You're going to want to hire a property management company to help you with the situation. They're going to charge you 10 to 50% per month to do what they do, and that may include helping with the booking, etc. But on top of that, they're also going to take care of the cleaning and getting you ready for the next guest, etc. Plus, a guarantee you're going to spend some money in repairs. People are trying to be nice with the property, but things happen. A lot of people moving in and out. Accidents happen. You're going to be making some repairs to make sure it looks as nice as possible. Nobody's going to want to rent your property if the toilet doesn't flush. Plus, let's not forget about those dang utilities. People who are vacationing want to make sure they're comfortable. They're going to turn the heat way up. They're going to keep lights on all day. They're going to have electricity and heat going for a lot longer than you would normally. So whatever utility numbers you think is going to be, probably bring that up a notch. Now let's talk about occupancy. If it's a brand new place you're working on and it's only summertime, you probably should consider about 40% worth of occupancy, maybe getting up to 50 to 60% by the time you're a little more established. If you run all these numbers and it doesn't cash flow without you being really optimistic about something, probably a red flag. You need to make sure that you're looking at it as an investment, as a commercial property where numbers and money rule. Now, this being said, maybe you want a property in the Black Hills that you want to hang out at, that you want to have so you can vacation. And the nightly rental piece of it is just, let's make some money once we got it anyway. That, of course, throws these numbers out and makes it a whole different conversation for you and I about whether or not that makes sense for you and what you're thinking about doing with the property. Nightly rentals in Rapid City and the Black Hills are a great opportunity, but not all opportunities pan out to work the way we'd hope them to. If you're thinking about this, we can have the conversation about what you're thinking about, what you're looking about as far as style of property, location, how it's going to work monetarily wise, and all the different things to give you a really good feel about how that's going to work for you in your situation. And hopefully we can find you a wonderful place in the Black Hills that meets all of your check boxes, and you can add a hot tub and give your realtor a few free weekends a year. That's all we're asking. With the popularity of nightly rentals over the past few years, it isn't just a slam dunk anymore. However, it still is possible and still viable, depending on how the numbers flow out and your needs and desires. And I'm here to help you every step of the way. If you like this video, make sure you check out this video. Are you sure you want to live in the Black Hills? And this playlist. Thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Remember, love where you live.